Hello students, welcome to your second lecture of Sociology Foundation Management batch. So in this lecture, we have few things to cover. One of the important things which we're gonna see is related to our last lecture itself about scope and nature of sociology. We have to look for how this particular thing is unique, how the scope and nature of sociology is unique, because in PYQs it has been asked continuously. Then we will move forward to the another topic which is about sociology and other social sciences, where we will be seeing how sociology is different from history, how it is different from psychology, how it is different from anthropology, how it is different from economy, etc. That what is this multidisciplinary approach which UPSC focus upon. Okay. Then we will be looking forward to sociological imagination, because again this is becoming an important topic with respect to PYQs, the concept given by C. Wright Mills. Then related to this, the last topic of ours will be sociology and common sense. How they are different and what is the relationship between them. Then, so these are the four important topics which we have to do. But before moving forward to these four topics, if you remember the last time we have discussed that how there is one micro school of thought and there is one macro school of thought related to sociology. Okay, so we are trying to highlight about levels of sociology even in different schools. One is called as formal school, the other is called as synthetic school. Between these, there is another school which is known as Meso school of thought related to sociology. Now, as we have understood earlier that sociology is nothing but systematic study of society. For Auguste Comte, Emile Durkheim, etc., who are from the positivist, the reality approach of sociology, they talk about that this is nothing but a scientific subject. So their focus is understanding the general patterns related to whatever the concept they have been trying to watch or trying to research about in society. Okay, so for them, social relationships human behavior all are structured and patterned. What this means, structured and pattern, that there is a particular this structured and pattern basically means that there is a particular way of looking at the reality okay, and if there is a particular way of looking at the reality, that means it is going to be universal in nature, that everyone will be seeing the social concept which we are researching about in a same manner. That means society, that means society is supreme to an individual. Society is supreme to an individual. Now, when we say society is supreme to an individual, this particular thing means that although all individuals or different individuals have combined together to form a particular society with the form of or with the help of different social relationships, social patterns, or social networks, social processes, etc. That although with all these or social interactions, that with all these they have made a society. But when this society has been made, this society has attained a characteristic of its own. That means now this particular society which has been made has different, if you have not been able to see this color, different existence than the individuals. It has become a different reality which is not dependent on individuals or their interactions. It has different or developed a different mechanism to control the individuals living in society to react in a certain manner or patterned manner which the society wants. That although few people have assimilated, they have interacted with respect to the with that interaction, the social processes happened, with social relationships made and social institutions made. All this led to the making of a society. But when this society has been made, now the society has its own existence independent of individuals living in there. It has attained its own characteristics in the form that it is now a different reality, different from the individuals who are living in that particular society. Okay, this is what Emil Durkheim talks about when he talks that society is sui generis, that it has existence of its own. It has existence of its own. Now the society is forcing individuals to react in a certain way. How they are going to react in a certain way? By following nothing but social rules, social norms, etc. Okay, so now individual interactions, individual relationships, the human behavior, that is all being dictated by society. Okay, so this was the meaning of society is sui generis when we talk about Emil Durkheim, that how it relates to your macro school of thought. So when there is a structured pattern way of behavior of looking at the human interactions, human behavior, social institutions, etc., that means that these interactions or behavior have been recurring again and again in a same manner. Hence, we can make a universal theory of these interactions, of these patterns, and we can make a generalization. Okay, so this is what macro approach is all about. That their focus is on making grand theory building. Their focus is on making grand theory building. The macro school largely focus on quantitative methods, as they have to focus on making grand theories, the larger theories on the basis of which they can judge the human behavior, they can find out the patterns related to human interactions, social processes, social relationships, etc. For that, they need to have quantitative methods. Why? Because if we are going to understand or try to look for that how thousands of individuals have been reacting in a certain way and we have to find a pattern, that means we have to use some mathematical calculations. Okay, we have to look for data, the empiricism which we always talk about. Focus on data, the empirical reality, the reality which is based, which is seen in the society and which can be patterned in the terms of numbers. Okay, largely for quantitative methodology and all, we will be talking about in the chapter related to research methods and analysis. But for time being, just remember this particular thing. Okay, so for them, what is the criticism will be then? That we say that society is based on human interactions. Can human interaction be devoid of any emotions? If there will be no emotions related to that particular thing or that particular interaction in which two humans have been interacting with each other, that means this is not a social interaction, this becomes a mechanical interaction. Two robots are talking between each other, that is a mechanical interaction, that is not a social interaction, because there is no emotions involved, there is no motive involved, there is no particular goal which they have been oriented towards. Okay, so here comes your micro school of thought. So for them, we have to focus on these human emotions, because without human emotions, there is no value of human interaction, social processes, social relationships. So unless and until we are giving importance to these human emotions, the feelings with which humans connect to each other, how we are going to say about that this is a social interaction or a social process, and how we are going to look forward that it will make a social relationship. So we have to focus upon human emotions. So for micro school of thought, human emotions becomes very much important. So they consider individual at the core, whereas in macro you have seen they consider society at the core. So their focus is on individual level, hence it is called as micro school of thought. Their focus is on individual level, to understand the individual emotions, to understand the individual feelings. Okay, in this school of thought you will be finding about the different thinkers, different approaches to understand society by them. I will be highlighting that in a different slide. Okay, just understand the basic meaning related. Now, what will be the criticism of this then? That if there are thousands of individuals making thousands of interactions every day, how we are gonna find a pattern related to these interactions then? That means we are focusing just on individual reality, not on the larger social reality. And if we are focusing on these thousands of individuals and the thousands of interactions which they have been making, that means there will be no grand theory building. So sociology can never be attaining a standard of science where the larger focus is on making theories. Okay. So for both we have understood the criticism. Because of this criticism, we say or we look for macro school of thought. Okay. Now here comes the third school of thought, which is so they say, hold on, we don't look forward to making grand theories, and we are not going to look for only individual acceptance. So we will be looking at a middle path like Buddha. So their major focus is on giving a middle ground for sociology theory building. Okay, so they say that yes, relationships, human behaviors are patterned, structured, but there are also emotions attached to it. There are also emotions attached to it. So for them, like Max Weber, where he talks about social action. A social action is an action which is oriented towards others, having meanings attached to that action, and the larger orientation is for some goal. So an action which is oriented towards other. That means if I am talking to you, that means this is an action I am doing towards you. If there is a orientation oriented towards others, that means this particular interaction is not a random interaction. We have been talking, we have been, in this particular social interactions, in this particular social action to transform knowledge from one person to another. That means you have a certain goal to achieve some knowledge, I have a certain goal to disseminate the information which I have generated, which I know. Okay, so there is an action oriented towards others. You also have meanings, I also have meanings. So there is meanings attached to this particular social action. Similarly, there is a one particular goal which we have highlighted, but the dissemination of information among each other. Understanding of sociological concepts in a simplified or simple way. Okay, so they say that we should not be diving too much into the individual approach, but we should be not looking too much to making a theory building approach where we say that every social interaction, social relationship has a patterned way of thinking. Okay, so we should be looking at a middle path. Okay, how we are going to look for this middle path? So Max Weber gives an ideal type approach where you will be characterizing some features, the ideal features of one particular concept, and then you try to compare it with the social reality which we have. Similarly, R.K. Merton, Robert King Merton, where he gives us the middle range theories, neither focusing on the macro approach nor focusing on the micro approach. We should be looking at the middle range theories. We should be looking at the middle, where the focus should also be on the individual thinking level, but there should be also focus on the theory building. Hence, when in the next lectures of ours, when we will be talking about the issue between objectivity and value, where you will be seeing that we are focusing on value neutrality and value relevance. There we will be talking about in the Max Weber terms. That the 100% objectivity, that means focusing 100% on making sociology a science is not possible, because we cannot ignore human emotions. Science में तो human emotions you can ignore. Physics is not about human emotions. Chemistry is not about human emotions. Okay, biology is not about human emotions. So they can look for the absolute reality. They can look for the absolute objectivity, where the focus is only on numbers, finding about the patterns. But in sociology, that is difficult to achieve. 100% objectivity cannot be achieved. But we can tend to look forward कि हम अपने जितने biasness हैं, the biasness which we have in ourselves, that should be controlled to make it a larger social science, to make it a larger discipline which can understand the society in a very systematic way. That is what definition of sociology is all. Systematic study of society. Got my point? So these were the three approaches which we need to revise again from the last lectures of ours. So micro, meso and macro schools of thoughts in sociology. So for macro, you will be having focus on grand theory building, focus on large social structures, systems and institutions that shape society as whole. So the primacy has been given to society over individuals. Who are the important thinkers which you can remember about in this particular school of thought? Auguste Comte, Emile Durkheim and Talcott Parsons. For Emile Durkheim, I have talked about. The similar approach has given by the Talcott Parsons. That societies, Talcott Parsons, society is a system of interrelated parts working for stability. That no matter what the society has been going through, we have to look for making a stable social order. That is what the necessity of society is all about. Okay, so all the functionalist approaches which we will be seeing later on in the different lectures, let me highlight that particular thing in a very simple manner. That whenever you will be learning about functionalist school of thought, just remember the word function. Function means something needs to continue. Okay, and it should have a relevance. So for functionalist school of thought, society needs to continue in the way it has been continuing from a larger time. That means the social order, social stability of society needs to be maintained in any circumstance. So for them, they will say that if there is caste system, that caste system has been made to make sure that society keep functioning. That the division on the basis of caste has been done to make sure that the society keeps functioning. That yes, it was necessary कि अगर there is Dalits, they have to continue to work as manual scavengers. Why? Because this work is not going to be done by the others. Hence, they have some social function which they need to perform. Okay. So for them, whatever the society has to, look forward to make its stability, to make its social order, it should continue like that only. Then comes your largely the conflict theory. So for the conflict thinkers, they will see everything in the form of conflict or tension in the society, where somebody is trying to consider them as superior than the other. For example, the capitalist class consider them as superior than the working class. Okay, they want to just utilize this working class for their own growth. So they will say that this particular caste system which we have seen earlier, this caste system is based on inequality. This is based on inequality where the upper caste has been subordinating and utilizing the lower caste for their own gains, not for the gains of lower caste or Dalits. Okay. Then there will be feminist approach which will look the society in the form of a gender perspective, where they will say that we feminists are, or we women are not been able to, or not have been given the due adherence or due respect which was reserved for us, which should be given to us. So we need to be looking forward that whatever the social concept which we are talking about, that should also give focus on gender perspective, giving importance to women, and the new perspectives which we have been seeing in the form of rise of LGBTQI plus. Okay, then there will be interactionists, etc., which we will be talking on later. So just remember for this particular timing. Then micro school of thought, where we have seen that focus on individual and small scale interactions in everyday life. So you can write about, here is George Herbert Mead. For him, we will be reading about in Sociological Thinkers part, the chapter 4, where we read about I, me and self of George Herbert Mead. For him, self is shaped through the social interaction, and he focus on symbols communications, which is the largely framework of society, that how the individuals interactions shape the larger social being. Then Erving Goffman. The Goffman also focus on daily interactions, that how we present them ourselves. So for Goffman, you will be seeing in the next lectures of ours, a daily representation which we give. So he is famous for his dramaturgy theory. Now, drama, what does this drama means? A drama means that a person who is acting on stage is acting on the behalf of script which is given to him. Okay, so that means he is not showing the real him, or she is not showing the real personality of her. She is trying to act in the way director wants. She is trying to act in the way the script wants. Okay, that means there is a difference between the public act which she has been doing and the personal individual act which she shows to herself only or at her home only. Okay, so for Goffman, when he says life is like a stage, people manage impressions in daily interactions. So he says that whenever you are confined in your own individual space, you behave differently. But whenever you want to highlight your value in front of someone, you try to behave differently. घर पे, whenever you are individual at your home, whenever you are with your very close friends, you abuse a lot. You use different kind of terminologies to talk to each others. Okay, maybe you will be doing something else also. Okay, which is not acceptable to the larger society. But whenever you will be in front of their parents, okay, in front of the parents of your friends, you will start behaving differently. Like they will say that this is, your friend is nothing but Ram and Lakshman. Okay, so this is drama which we have been going through in our daily interaction. So in public you behave differently, in private life you behave differently. Similarly, Harold Garfinkel, he talks about that people produce social order everyday life through common sense practices. That the individual behavior is dictated by nothing but their individual behavior is dictated by whatever we learn from our day-to-day interactions. Okay, like if there is a lift and everyone wants to go to this lift, but you will not see people running and skipping the queue or skipping the line to go to this particular lift. One will be standing at their positions. Okay. Similarly, if they have entered into the lift, nobody will start, entering into the lift and abusing to each other. They will remain calm. They will remain silent. Okay. So everybody behaves in a same patterned manner, which is because based on day-to-day interactions. So hence, individual interactions and behavior is important to understand. Okay. So what are the key features of micro will be then? Looks to face interactions, focus on meanings, motives and identities. They are subjective and interpretative approach, and they have small scale everyday situations. Whereas macro, they focus on large scale structures, focus on large social institutions, culture, social change, etc. Their focus is on bringing objectivity and structural approach. Okay. Then comes the meso. It focus on groups, organizations and communities and how they shape individuals and society. Like I have talked about how R.K. Martin has talked about your middle range theories. Then C.Rat Mills, he talks about that how you should be looking at your personal problems from a public lens. Okay, from a sociological understanding. we have a separate topic related to him of sociological imagination. You will able to understand that better in that particular part. Okay, there looks at groups, organization, communities, connects individual with larger structures. They study role, norms, networks and institutions. For example, middle range theory and multi-level analysis. Okay. So for if you are looking for the real world examples, how a person presents themselves on Instagram, it is nothing but an example of micro school of thought. How you interact with your friend is an example of micro school of thought. But how the larger political system is, changing the education is nothing but example of macro school. How religion is dictating your day-to-day life is nothing but an example of macro school. Okay. Then all the criticism and all we have already talked about. Now, the next topic is related to, so we are done with now we will move forward this particular second topic, which is about sociology and other sources. Sociology and other social sciences. Now, other social sciences means the subjects which are already there to understand some components of society. For example, economy is there. Economy understands what? The economic relationship in the society. For example, for capitalists, the focus on profit. For daily wage laborers, the focus is on daily income which they have been getting. For government with economic sense, the focus is on how much their capital receipts. And revenue receipts are okay. That is what nothing but your budget, which is an economic exercise. Then what does history do? History looks at the past events. So their focus is largely on particular events. Okay. For economy, what kind of approach we have, the methods we use for understanding the economic transaction in society based on numbers only. That means we focus on quantity, not on quality. Now remember how we say, or there has been regular question related to this, that we should be not focusing on economic growth but on economic development, which should look for inclusive growth. Your GS3 question. So history looks for past events where we are focusing on particular events. That means we are giving importance to particular individuals or particular events. When we talk about individuals or events, does history give importance to all the individuals and all events? No, they give importance only to the events or individuals who it considers important. That's the reason you will be always finding, for example, lakhs of freedom fighters would have been there when the India was fighting for its freedom struggle. But how many freedom fighters do you remember now? Or on how many freedom fighters you have watched movies? On how many freedom fighters do we still know about? Okay. So they focus only on the large leaders or on the individuals who are superior. So here also comes importance of caste or class angle. Okay, it is generally considered as an idiographic in its approach. That means the focus only on events. The methods it uses is based on your biographies, history books, newspapers, etc. Okay. Then look forward your psychology. What does psychology talk about? So the core focus, the center of psychology is individual. Their focus on is understanding the individual mind and individual behavior. Okay. So they try to understand different types of personalities. So they say that individual behave in a certain manner on the basis of his own emotional or biological needs. Or physical needs. That means whenever he wants to have food, he wants to have food. Okay, if he feeling emotionally vulnerable, he will try to talk to his parents or families, or he will go into depression and all if no one is there to talk about the issues that that particular person has been facing. Okay, then in biological you can have your sexual desires and etc. Then the focus is on emotional and biological needs. The core focus is on individual, where we talk about the types of different personalities. Then anthropology. Anthropology is one of the closest subjects to our sociology. The major focus in anthropology is man and how he makes culture in time and space. Okay, so they go in their approach from micro to macro, micro to macro. So they start from understanding an individual society, that how that particular the individuals of that particular area have been related to each other, have come together, and they try to form a larger culture which is continuing till date. Okay, so they start from the past. Then they also try to find out the general behavior in the larger tribes which they have been reading about or which they have been researching. So basically they are considered as, sociology and anthropology are considered as twin sisters, because for both of them the core focus is on man, but here the larger focus is on also culture, but in sociology the larger focus is on society. I will come to dictating terms related to how sociology is different from the all individual things. Okay, now your political science. What does this political science means? Political science is nothing but understanding the relationship between different. They focus, for them the study focus is on political institutions, political behavior, and political power. How much votes have been polled? Okay, in which area one particular political party has got how many votes? The focus on capturing power at center and state level. Okay, how the power can be distributed, power distribution. These are the important focus areas in which political science talks about. Now let's start comparing each one of these. So as we have seen, history is nothing but understanding about past events. Sociology is not only understanding about past events. Sociology is a systematic study of society where we not only focus on past events but also focus on present events. Okay, so history also focus on present events. That means history focus on the continuing social change. They focus on continuing social change. So here the focus is only to the superior individuals in history, but in sociology the focus is on largely all the different sections, especially the marginalized or excluded groups. So the subaltern study of Ranjit Guha, on which UPSC has asked questions few years ago in paper 2, is nothing but understanding of marginalized sections and excluded groups and how they have their view needs to be understood in the larger. So as it focus on individual events, it's idiographic. The sociology focus on generalization. Okay, sociology will try to find out a patterns in different historic events. As we have seen in nature and scope of sociology when we were reading last time, that sociology is what? Sociology sees for finding general in the pattern behaviors. Sociology seeks on finding familiar in the strange behavior. Okay. So here they also, sociology also focus on finding about a pattern in the different historic events. That how the French Revolution is related to the Indian Revolution. How the state system which we have seen in French Revolution can be equated with the caste system in Indian society. So there is nothing but a finding about a pattern, a similar pattern, similarity in the different events. Okay, so seeing general in particular. Methods, they use biographies, history books, newspapers, etc. But we, the sociology students or sociology researchers, they focus on a multi-level approach. Multi-level analysis can be done on the basis of surveys, on the basis of questionnaires, on the basis of participant observations or field study to understand the larger historical frame. I hope you understand the difference between history and sociology. Similarly, for psychology, the focus is on individual. But here in sociology, the focus is on society. The focus is on large social relationships, large social interactions, large social networks. Okay, so they talk about, the psychology talk about mind and behavior of an individual, but the sociology talks about that how the larger human behavior has been dictated on the basis of society or social forces. For example, if an individual has committed suicide, for a psychology, this is an individual act. This is an individual act. Maybe that some person, that particular person was going through some mental stress or mental agony and he committed suicide. But for sociology, this suicide is not an individual act. This is an act done on the basis of different social currents or social forces which forced this individual to commit suicide. So the social surrounding has been made in such a way that the individual has committed suicide. For example, the NEET students who have been committing suicides. So recently the NEET paper was getting leaked again and again. So around 20 students have committed suicide. What can be the reasons? The reason can be that they were ashamed that they are bringing shame to their family. Another reason is the political authorities are not been able to control this particular leaks. So institutional failure. So rather than focusing on the individual behavior of committing suicide, the focus should be on the larger social forces or social currents which have forced that particular individual to commit suicide. Similar approach you can utilize for the farmer suicides also. Okay. Then it talks about, psychology talks about types of personalities or studies types of personalities, but sociology studies types of different societies. How we can find out a comparison between those or a similarity between those. Okay, so for them the focus should be on emotional and biological needs or the physical needs, but for sociology the focus should be on social needs. That, as for example, for functionalist, the focus should be on understanding that how society should be keeping on functioning. The society should keep functioning to maintain the social integrity, social morality and social solidarity. Now try to connect this with the larger counter enlightenment period which we have read in the lecture 1. What was the reason for Emil Durkheim to criticize the modernity? Because the social order was getting challenged. There was large chaos, the crime rate was increasing, the poverty was increasing, the social, the family system was getting disintegrated, creating, leading to anxiety, chaos in the society. Okay, so all those problems were nothing but the problems related to non-maintenance of social order, non-maintenance or non-functioning of society. Hence, they were problematic. So they were criticizing the social changes which were bringing the negative effects in. Okay. Now, anthropology. So anthropology's focus is on man and culture, but the society's focus is largely on man and society. For anthropology, the focus is mainly on the basis of past events, but for society or sociology, the focus is on past plus present events. Okay, they combine into micro or macro. From micro they go to the macro, but for us micro is also important, macro is also important, and there is a meso school of thought also important, which we have seen earlier. Then political science, they study political institutions, political behavior, political power, but we try to understand, or sociology try to understand, social institutions, social behavior and social power. That means for the power part, try to understand that for the political science approach, their focus is largely on that how one particular state can be controlled. कि हम वहां पे वोट कैसे लेके जीत जाएंगे उस स्टेट की पावर को. Similarly, how we can have control at the center. But sociology try to understand power dynamics in every relationship. How the power dynamics function in family. Why males have different powers than females. Why males can go out after 10 p.m. Why male decision is very much important in buying a car, in buying a scooter, in buying a house, and not the decision of women. So there is a power dynamics in every relationship. Okay. Then the social behavior. So their focus is on social behavior. That how people vote on the basis of their caste and class. That is important. Voting is not important. The behavior, the pattern of voting is very much important. Which caste is voting particular leader? For example, why Jats have been voting only for Jats? Why Yadavs have been voting only for Yadavs? Why Brahmins have been voting only for Brahmins? Why Muslims have been voting only for Muslims? So that is the social behavior which we need to understand. And if that social behavior can be connected with political science, that become political sociology. Okay. So for every other subject which we have seen right now, economy, there is social economy. A new subject. What is the social economy? Think from a example which you guys must have seen in your daily life. In a rural area, if you guys have gone through any time, a particular ad for large ads for different products like Horlicks or Fair and Lovely, highlighting prices that in rupees 5 or 10 only give health to your children. In rupees 5 or 10 only, now you can become dark to fair skin. Your beauty you can get in 5 to 10 rupees. Why they have been projecting these cheap ads in the rural areas? Because they have understood that they have to sell a product. That is what? An economic angle. But they have understood that the purchasing power of the rural people, rural areas, purchasing power depends on the different kinds of jobs which they have been doing. So they have understood the social pattern of their particular, that if we want to sell our product in these areas, we have to make products and make them resemblings that this is nothing but a high-end product which you can be getting at a very cheap price. So they have understood the social dynamics of the rural area. The economic related to, similar for history we have a social history, similar for anthropology we have social anthropology, for political science I have given example we have social politics. Okay. History versus sociology. Sociology is the study of society, social relationships, institutions, social behavior in a systematic way. History is the study of past events, people's ideas, developments in a chronological sequence. So they focus on timeline approach. So what is the focus of history? Unique events, individuals and developments in the past. For history, patterns of social life, relationship, institutions and social processes. key question what they ask, history asks what happened in the past, when and how. But sociology asks why that particular thing happened. Why the people started to behave in a different way in that particular era only. That if freedom struggle was, seen lot of women mobilization during the Gandhian phase. So for history, this is female mobilization in Gandhian phase. There was an increased female mobilization in Gandhian phase, which you must have been read in your history. But for sociology, why women now? Why can't women were earlier part of the freedom struggle? How that become a reality? Okay. Unit of analysis: events, individuals, rulers, wars, movements, etc., etc. Here, unit of analysis is social institutions, communities, social relationships, social structures. Time perspective: it mainly look at the past. It studies both present and past. What is the method? They use historical method. They use scientific methods, and it can be uses of historical methods too. So scientific plus historical methods, both approaches are used here. Nature of study: it is for history, it is descriptive and narrative, where it tells a story what was happened. For sociology, the nature of study is analytical and explanatory, where it tends to highlight why and how certain things have happened. Goal: to reconstruct, record and interpret the past. But for sociology, the goal is to understand, explain and find patterns. Okay. Example: studying of revolt of 1857, what happened, who were the leaders, key outcomes. But for sociology, studying why revolts happen, what were the reasons for social economic causes were there, what were the group mobilization, what was the role of leadership played related to the mobilization of different people in the society. Done. This was your history and sociology. Now, you must have been looking at lot of thinkers which I have clubbed in this particular images. I will be dropping these images on the Telegram itself as well as the WhatsApp community group which we have for our understanding of sociology and sharing the notes. The name of that particular group is, WhatsApp group is Sociology with Sunya IAS. Okay, it is a WhatsApp channel which we have made to interact more among each other. I will be dropping these sheets there. So you can look forward to understanding what they have been talking about. Else, in the enrichment classes of ours, I will be talking about, when we will be revising these things, I will be also talking about the various thinkers related to those approaches. Okay. That's the reason in these particular foundation classes, my focus is on building a solid base of yours. When the time will come, when you need to understand about which thinker you can club, that is already done in enrichment sessions, and we will be dealing about them in further parts. Then sociology and psychology, the focus for sociology is on social behavior, groups, institutions, social structures, whereas in psychology the focus is on individual behavior. What does the key question the psychology must be asking? That why do individuals think, feel and behave in a particular way? For sociology, how does society shape individuals and their behavior? Unit of analysis: individual mind and behavior. There, the group, community, social interaction, social organization. Okay, else the things we have already discussed. Then social psychology is the study of how individuals' thoughts, feels and behaviors are influenced by the real or imaginary partners. Okay. Sociology and economy we have done. Sociology and anthropology, it's already done. Now, the question arises, as we have seen or marked earlier, that what we need to talk about. The question arises that why. So we have done with this particular part. The important question: scope and nature of sociology, which we have already covered in the last lecture, but we will be focusing about why it is called as unique. Okay. Why do you think it is called as unique? The scope of sociology or the scope and nature of sociology is called unique. Because sociology was born as a subject in that particular circumstances when there was already lot of subjects were there. Economy was there, anthropology was there, political science was there, psychology was there, history was there. But they were understanding an individual things. They were understanding its specific events. Their focus was on specificity rather than focusing on the generalization. So the first uniqueness which you can look forward is generalization approach of. How this generalization is going to get developed? By looking at social relationships, social interactions, etc., or human behavior, etc., and finding about a patterned way of these interactions. So finding patterns in those events. Sociology is also unique, or the scope and nature of sociology is also unique, because sociology tends to find pattern even in random events. Like we have seen history wale jab example we were talking about, that we will be able to find out a pattern between French Revolution and Indian Revolution, Indian freedom struggle. Okay, we will be trying to find a pattern between industrial revolution of Europe and industrial revolution of Asia. As an example which we have highlighted earlier related to revolution, that we will be trying to compare the state system of feudal society with the caste system of Indian traditional society. That is how we find pattern even in random events जो कभी एक दूसरे के साथ मैच ही नहीं हो. Okay, sociology looks at or seeks to find out general in particular. Sociology seeks to find out range in familiar events. Sociology tends to look forward to understand social change and give reasons for that. Okay, now here comes an important distinction point which we have seen in the last lecture of ours, where I have highlighted that sociology is descriptive as well as prescriptive. Now this descriptive and prescriptive approach I will highlight here. So let's do here itself. This descriptive and prescriptive approach, what does it mean? Descriptive approach means the analysis of what we have been seeing. Prescriptive approach means generally that what kind of prescription or medicine the sociology has been giving us to look forward कि अब हमें क्या करना चाहिए, what is the goal end. Okay, this particular approach is approach of somewhat related to the approach of only functional school of thought, not all the school of thoughts. When you will be writing about the nature of sociology, where we will be writing looking forward to write points related to descriptive and prescriptive, you should be looking at writing that sociology is descriptive and not prescriptive. Not prescriptive. That means it analyzes or analyze the society to understand different patterns, different behaviors, different relations, different networks. Okay, without any prescription, without any solution. It just tried to understand the social change, the social transformation which the society has been going through. Okay, this is why the nature and scope of sociology is unique. So you can write these points. Then this particular part is also done. Now we have come down to sociological imagination. If you want to see what we have shown in the chart of this, how scope of sociology is unique. Sociology studies society as a whole, patterns of social life, relationships, institutional change. It connects individual with larger social. Okay, and all these other points are nothing but related to your sociology and other social. So whenever a question comes around sociology and other social sciences, which I have especially dealt in your enrichment wala session, where also I will be showing you some ready-made revision notes, and the same kind of approach is here also. Just give a one reading, you will understand whatever we have talked till now. Now, sociological imagination. What do we mean by sociological imagination? So just read to these words. Imagination means to imagine, to visualize something on the basis of what? On the basis of, so making sociological understanding to see the social reality. Making a sociological understanding to see the social reality. What does this mean? So this particular concept was given by C. Wright Mills, where he talks about that sociological or social researcher should develop a sociological imagination. That means that an individual should be able to find out the intersection between personal troubles and public issues. So there are two important words: personal troubles and public issues. Personal troubles basically means that whatever the problem an individual has been facing, problem of an individual. So whatever the personal problem the individual has been facing, he should be able to relate it with the larger social causes, which is nothing but public issues. That the problems on individual level, the problems at an individual level, the problems suffered by an individual are nothing but related to the larger social causes. For example, unemployment. Take example from the today's India. There is rise of unemployment. So someone will say that this is an individual event or individual reasons for it. Why? That the person is not educated enough. Hence, he is out of job. Nobody is ready to give him job. But what about the politics? That there is no large scale employment opportunities given by the government. What about the social dynamics? That because that person is belonging to a lower caste group, because the person is belonging to a minority religion, nobody is giving him job, but he is not getting the job which he is aspiring for. What is economy? What if the person is poor and because of this poverty he has not been able to learn more, and that's the reason he is not getting job. So this is not a personal issue, this is a this is not only a personal trouble, but we should be looking at larger public issues. So C. Wright Mills says that when we try to connect biography means what? An individual life. When we try to connect biography from a historical and social factors with historical and social factors, that is what sociological imagination. That means it is nothing but debunking common sensical knowledge. Now here comes what is commonsensical knowledge. Commonsensical is nothing but a routine day-to-day knowledge based on shared beliefs, norms, traditions, etc. Okay, it is unreflective. That means it does not reflect the reality of society. It is continuing from past which nobody challenges. Nobody has challenged till now that why woman has to only leave their house after marriage. Why can't men leave their house and go to the woman's place? Okay, so it has been continuing from the past. It has been continuing on the basis of traditions. Whenever you will be sitting for a particular religious ritual, your family members will say that you have to sit in this particular direction only. Why? Because it is based on commonsensical, which is continuing from a longer period of time. Getting my point? Okay, it is untested, unquestionable. Whereas the sociological imagination or sociological knowledge or sociology, all is, these all considered same. This is reflexive, where we tend to question the concept on the basis of its rationality. So it is based on empirical reality. We tend to test the commonsensical knowledge. We tend to test the commonsensical knowledge. The sociological imagination gives you the hidden truth of a particular social interaction, social relationship, social communication, etc., etc. Okay. Sociological imagination, sociological knowledge or sociology is testable. It is testable and falsifiable. That means we can test this particular social knowledge which we have been talking about, and we can, if it is not able to give the particular result, it can be falsified also. Okay. Sociological imagination, sociological knowledge gives you a particular general theory to look for the larger social event which has been continuing. Generally, we consider that it is universal. The sociological imagination or knowledge which we are getting for a particular concept is universal, but common sense is different or differs or varies with time and space. Okay, this was what we have to read about related to sociological imagination, sociological knowledge, sociology and common sense. But is there any relationship between sociology and common sense? Yes, there is a relationship between sociology and common sense. What is that relationship? That if sociology is trying to find out or doing research related to some social concept, for example, the role of subordination of women in family structure. Okay, so common sense will be what is common sense related to this particular part? That yes, woman has to be subordinate to male, or the husband will be superior to female or the wife. Why? Because it is continuing from a very long time. It is based on religion. Religion says that the social structure where the woman has been coming to the husband's house says that she needs to be subordinate to us. That is how we have been seeing the continuance of dowry system or dowry pratha. So that means this particular part, a subordination of women in family, is nothing but a common sensical knowledge And if a researcher is going to do research on this particular part, that means common sense is providing an starting point to a sociological research. Common sense is giving us hypothesis. Hypothesis is what? A tentative statement where we tend to find out a relationship between two different variables and look for theory building approach. So it is giving us a starting point for do our research. It is giving us a hypothesis. It is giving us different tools to understand the thing in question or the concept in question. That how it is related to religion. Somebody will say that nahi ye to agar wo if she has been coming from a lower class background, she has to be subordinate to the family members or subordinate to the husband. That means somebody is giving the economic angle also. It is giving us a different informations, different tools to understand the larger social. So this is how common sense is related to sociology. Lot of thinkers have talked about, for Einstein also, that nothing is, commonsensical knowledge is not an absurd knowledge, but it gives a further point to sociology to understand the society at a larger level. Okay. Sociological imagination, she read, means the sociological imagination enables us to grasp history and biography and the relationship between two within society, where you tend to find out relationship between personal troubles with public issues, and this is what sociological imagination is all about. So sociological imagination, ability to look beyond personal troubles and see their connection with larger social forces and historical processes. How does it work? So an individual life where we have different choices, different experiences, problems and hopes, we try to connect it with the larger social context and the larger social structures, and hence we make a critical awareness of our society. For example, social media impact. That not just I am wasting time online, but also that somebody will be utilizing the phones. है ना, जैसे आजकल के बच्चे, the kids right now have been utilizing phones so much. So we say that they have been glued to their screen. So they have become a habit to look at the particular screen again and again. दिन में, in every day they have been utilizing phones for 4 to 5 hours. But we don't tend to focus on what is the larger reason for that. That apart from his individual, feeling for looking at the phone again and again, the algorithm has been designed in such a way that it is forcing him to keep looking at the screen. The products he has been showing again and again, that is nothing but forcing him to keep looking at the screen. The platform marketing has been done in such a way that they force you to pick up your phone and look at the screen again and again. Okay. Similarly, the economic issue right now, consider this, that the price of cylinders have increased. So we say that this is an economic angle, cylinder ke price बढ़ गए, that's nothing much more to think about. That is what has been portrayed by the Indian media now. But look at the larger impact of these rising prices. The inflation is not only in economic terms, the inflation is also related to the social terms also. Na? Everything related to a human life will get expensive. The education will get expensive, health will get expensive, everyday living standards will get expensive. Okay, so this is how we look at the society at a larger level. Then sociology versus common sense. What is common sense? A commonsensical knowledge, according to Alfred Schutz, it is nothing but a taken for granted knowledge. Okay, according to Alfred Schutz, it is nothing but a taken for granted knowledge based on personal experiences, traditions, popular beliefs, family teachings, etc. etc. Example, poor people are poor because they don't work hard. How sociology will see this particular part? Sociology is the systematic and scientific study of society and social behavior, which is based on evidence, research, data, observation and theory building. So society seeks to understand why and how of any social phenomena. So for them, for commonsensical knowledge, that people are poor because they don't want to work hard. People are not working because they are lazy. Sociology will say that poverty may result from unequal opportunities, caste barriers, unemployment, etc. etc. Okay, what are the key differences? The source of common sense is your personal experience, beliefs, traditions, etc., etc. But source for sociology is scientific research. The source for common sense or the scope of common sense is individual cases, but we sociology, social patterns. The common sensical knowledge have a subjective pattern because it changes after every area, after every time. But here sociology is objective. Verification, is there verification of common sense? No, it is based on the social assumptions. But we look for evidence for any sociological research. Okay. Reliability, common sense is not reliable because it varies persons to persons, varies areas to areas, it varies time to time. Whereas sociology is systematic and testable. Poverty, common sense, people are lazy. Sociology, class inequality poverty depends on class inequality, education access, labor market structure, social exclusion, caste discrimination, etc. Okay. Related to crime, common sense that criminals are bad people. But sociology says that if people have been indulged so much into poverty, crime is the only solution which they have left now. So hence we have to understand that why that particular criminal has been, or why that particular social segment has been doing this particular crimes. We see crime, sociology see crimes as not as a crime, it is sees crime as a deviance, which you will see in Emil Durkheim and R.K. Merton theories in the later stages. Okay. Then gender equality. Common sense that says that women naturally prefer household work. कि भाई औरतों को तो अच्छा लगता है, they will be doing work in the house only. But sociology says that women have been subjugated in this particular four walls of the house, that they have to live there only. Why? Because patriarchy says that. Gender socialization has not been in that particular manner that it will support the woman or okay. Similarly, the NEET JEE failure, which I have given you earlier example, this common sense will say that students have not worked hard, hence they have failed. But sociology will say that what kind of a class background they have been coming from, what kind of a family pressure they have been, facing at that particular point of time, how the education, what kind of education they have been given. If there can be educational inequality, so they can be trapped in that particular approach. Okay. Then social media addiction, rising divorce rate, etc., etc. Relationship between sociology and common sense. So sociology does not completely reject common sense. It tried to test that particular common sense, and if that can be tested, empirically verified, it can become a theory. Okay. Sociology starts where common sense ends. So common sense gives fodder points. Common sense gives starting point to sociology. It tests, verifies questions, and refines everyday beliefs. So this is what sociological imagination, sociology, and common sense is all about. Now, one particular question which we tend to focus upon right now related to sociology and common sense. Lot of exercises we will be doing in enrichment classes, but I wanted to highlight that how we are looking for answer writing approach in this particular session also. So for answer writing, as I have conveyed you earlier also, the major focus of ours needs to be understanding keywords given in the question. Okay? First part. Second part, we should be knowing that how we will be making relationships between different keywords. We need to focus on keeping our answer simple and to the point. That means no matter what, you have to follow just core demand of the question, nothing else. Just focus on core demand. Okay, for this particular focus on core demand, just try to focus about what and how of a particular concept. What means what that particular concept means, and how means either you are looking for the features or characteristics of that particular component which are in question, or how it has been impacting the society at a larger level. Again, that can be asked from the features or characteristics. So just focus on these four dynamics, your answer will be done. Okay. Another fifth dynamic which you can focus upon is focus more on dimensions rather than thinkers. This should not be our approach. The thinker approach should not be our approach. We should be focusing on making our answer simple, sticking to the point, adhering to the core demand of question, focusing on what and how, and focusing on dimension. Okay. One another suggestion: don't try to name drop thinkers or examples. Make sure you are writing full sentences. Make sure you are writing short and crisp, clear understanding wale sentences rather than making your sentence structure complex. Okay. Now let's understand this particular sheet which I have taken from a topper answer sheet. So the question is, describe sociological imagination. Describe sociological imagination. How does it challenge the commonsensical ways of looking at the world around us? So the question is about sociological imagination. One keyword. Second, challenge. Third, commonsensical knowledge. So the question is asking us, or it has given us a relationship between sociological imagination and common sense. That how these are not related or bringing challenge to each other. So our approach should be first try to highlight what sociological imagination is all about. Nothing else. What does it do? That's the thing which they are asking about. Describe sociological imagination. The definition and what is the importance. Definition and what is the importance of sociological imagination. Then the second part, how does it challenges the commonsensical knowledge of looking at the world around us? For that, we have to do nothing. We have to just focus on what is common sense and how common sense is being challenged by sociological imagination. Now look here. In definition, it will cover what is sociological imagination. Here also it is covering what is commonsensical knowledge. We are done with what and what. For importance, we have to focus on how approach, that how it is important. Similarly, for understanding how it is challenges the commonsensical knowledge, we have to focus upon how of common sense. That's the reason I have said that we should be focusing on what and how, definition and importance. Importance can be understood from characteristics also. Okay. Now read that particular answer. So the answer should be definition of sociological imagination. So simple definition. Sociological imagination is a concept given by C. Wright Mills which refers to the ability of a social researcher to look beyond the personal troubles to identify structural issues in society. Basically, the ability of a social researcher to find out a interrelationship or intersection between personal troubles and public issues. A simple definition of sociological. How it is important? It enables us to look at historical facts and how they affect biography of people. So, sociological imagination is enabling us, helping us to find out reasons for personal troubles, that the social causes, social relationships, social currents can be the reasons for personal troubles. Okay. Example, issue of suicide. Suicide rates increasing is a public issue not caused by depression or anxiety as common sense says, but it is result of declining social integration and moral regulation as highlighted by Emil Durkheim in his suicide theory, if you want to write the thinker name. Then the second part starts, challenges common sense. For this, first, common sense refers to routine day-to-day ordinary knowledge that helps us to navigate in day-to-day interaction or everyday interaction. Simple definition. Done. Now, sociological imagination challenges the common sense in following ways. What are these ways? That commonsensical knowledge, sociological knowledge is reflexive, and it asks why that particular social phenomena is continuing or happening. Okay. For example, sociological imagination questions patriarchal marriages and questions why females go to groom's house and not the other way around. Okay. So it is reflexive. Sociological imagination tries to find out hidden social dogmas or hidden social truths which is beyond commonsensical understanding. Like, arranged marriage might seem common sense, but sociological imagination reveals that the real reason of arranged marriage is nothing but maintaining endogamy or caste purity. Okay. The simple way with which we have been trying to understand the sociology, that simplistic approach is necessary to learn or answer writing skills too. And this particular student has scored more than 300 marks in sociology. Okay. Thus, sociological imagination provides in-depth view unlike commonsensical superficial knowledge. Okay. So, it's my humble request to you guys again, whenever you are trying to understand sociology, be simple in your thought process. Don't try to make your education, don't try to make your learning complex that it will become difficult for you to understand the society at a larger level or sociology at a larger level for our exam perspective. We are not doing any research, we are not doing any other thing. Okay. So, after this lecture, you will be getting your enrichment lecture, where we will be doing again revision of your chapter 1, which is sociology the discipline. With this, you will be getting practice questions 2, which you need to solve with me in the class as well as after the class as homework. Okay. With that particular revision practice set, you will be also getting the short revision notes. So, whatever we have discussed till now in our foundation classes, if you want to combine that information, you will be already getting that information in the sociology book of ours. But if you are focusing on making short notes, first focus on understanding the concept in its simplicity, then focus on the revision part, which I will, that how I am focusing on what kind of approach you will be looking forward while revising the concepts, and then practice sessions and try to club that information in those notes if you find them feasible enough. Okay. So this is all for the today's class. We will meet again in the next lecture. Till then, take care. Goodbye.